Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are going to be talking about rounding today. I cannot believe we are starting our third unit together, but I'm so excited. And rounding is what we're going to be talking about for 2 full weeks. So you do not have a math test this week. You just have a little quiz at the end of the week. So you can kind of take a breather. You can kind of relax a little bit, but you will still have your Canvas work to do at home this week. So let's begin. First of all, what is rounding? Well, rounding is just a close estimate or guess of a number. So let's say we had a jar full of jelly beans. Do you like jelly beans? I don't like them that much. They're all right, but they're not my favorite. If you don't like jelly beans, you can replace that with M&Ms, Skittles, whatever gets you excited to think about it. So there are about 50 jelly beans, 50 M&Ms, whatever you want to think of, in a jar. Really, there's 47 in the jar, but we're rounding it to the closest number to make a guess. If somebody asked you, hey, how much did that shirt cost? You're not going to look at the shirt and say, oh, it was $3.98 at Walmart. No, you're going to say it was about $5. It was about $4, okay? You're going to round it to the closest amount, all right? If someone asks me, how many students do you have at Eastern Elementary? I don't know the top number off the top of my head. I don't know that exact number, but I can guess, I can estimate around between 400 and 500 kids, somewhere in there. So I can kind of round it to the nearest number that ends in a 0, all right? So rounding, all the numbers always end in 0. That's really important to remember. So we're going to start out kind of easy with rounding to the tens place. So we're learning about rounding to the tens place today. And this is why it is so important that you're doing your work every single week, because in math, everything builds on each other. We covered place value a couple weeks ago. We just used place value last week when comparing and ordering numbers, and now we're going to use it this week to round to the tens and the hundreds place. So you need to know that tens place. That's why it was important for you to learn your place value. All right, so first thing we're going to do is underline the tens place. We're going to spotlight the ones place, which is going to make sense in a minute. And then the 1 is going to tell the 10 to either bump up or stay the same. You're probably thinking, what are you talking about, Miss Weaver? Well, I'm glad you asked because I'm about to show you. So first of all, we have our rhyme that we need. We're going to memorize. We're going to learn it. We're going to love it. We're going to breathe it. We are going to live it the next 2 weeks. This is going to be our lifesaver, okay? The chant goes, 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or above, give it a shove. So let's try it together. I'll slow it down and then we'll do it together. It goes 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or above, give it a shove. I'm going to set this down so that we can use both of our hands together. All right, guys, I want us to try this together. On the count of 3, we're going to say it. And I want to hear you say it nice and loud. I know you're at a computer screen. It doesn't matter. I still want you to do it out loud because that is how you learn things. Say it out loud so that your brain hears it, okay? Here we go. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or above, give it a shove. Did you do it? If you didn't, we're going to try it again. I still can't hear you very loudly. I'm all the way over here, guys. It's going to take a lot of energy to get your voice all the way over here for me to hear it on the other side of this computer screen. Are you ready? Here we go. 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or above, give it a shove. You're probably thinking, what does this have to do with anything? You're going to use it in just a minute. Trust me. Okay. So this is where it's going to come into place. First of all, I have underlined the 2 in the number 23. We have this number right here, 23. I've underlined the 2 because it's in the tens place. This is the number that is going to change, okay? So the 2 is going to change or it's going to stay the same. Does that make sense? Because we're rounding it to the nearest tens place. So in order to figure out if it's closer to 20 or 30, do you know how I put this right here, 20 or 30? Because those are the tens it comes between. If I had a number line, I'd have 20 over here, 30 over here. 23 comes somewhere in between those two. So the closest tens is either one of those numbers. So what we're going to do is we are going to spotlight, which is circle, the ones place. A spotlight is when you're like performing up on a theater stage and you have a big old light coming down on you, okay? And it's spotlighting it. That's because that person is the most important person in the entire show at that point. Right now, the 3 is the most important number in this number, okay? It's because the 3, watch what happens, is going to tell the 2 what to do with an arrow, okay? So this little arrow is like the 2 going, hey, I'm going to tell you what to do. How many of you guys are the oldest sibling? I'm the oldest sibling. I have 2 younger brothers. If you're the oldest, and maybe if you're just a girl, I don't know. Or maybe you're a boy, I don't know. And you like to be a little bit bossy. I like to be a little bit bossy sometimes. Well, today is your moment to shine because the ones place is going to be bossy and tell that 2 what to do. It's going to tell the 2 to either stay a 2 or bump up to a 3. Notice how I didn't say that the 2 is going to bump back. The 2 is nowhere close to 10, is it? The 2 is not going to ever bump back to a 1. No, it's either going to stay a 2 or it's going to change to a 3. And the way we figure that out is the ones place. Is this 3 telling the 2 to bump up or to stay the same? Well, this is how we figure it out. If this number in the circle is 4 or lower, so 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4, then it's going to tell the 2 to stay at 2. That means that it is closer to 20 because 21, 22, 23, and 24 are all going to be closer to 20 than to 30, all right? And then if it was 26, 27, 28, 29, or 25, those would all bump up to 30 because those are closer to 30. So that's kind of what we're deciding. We're kind of deciding where does the number fall on the number line, okay? So this is the 3. Our chant is 4 or less, let it rest. 5 or above, give it a shove. So is 3 4 or less or 5 or above? 3. Well, last time I checked, 3 is 4 or less because it is less than 4. So we are going to let the 2 rest. It means that the 2 is just going to stay a 2. And what happens to the 3 is it becomes a 0 because it already has a 0 circling around it, okay? So that's an easy way to remember it's going to become 20. All right, let's talk about 45. This is a close one, and you're going to see why. First, we're going to underline the tens because that's what we're rounding to, the tens place. 1's tens, the 4. We're going to spotlight the 5, and the 5 is going to tell the 4 what to do. 45 comes in between 40 and 50, okay? On the number line, it's 40 and 50. 45 comes kind of smack dab in the middle, okay? This is where we decide, is it closer to 40 or closer to 50? This is where our rhyme is going to really help. Is the 5 in the circled number, this is one we're looking at, the spotlight number, because pew, it's the one that we're focused on. We're focused on the 5. Is the 5 4 or less, or is the 5 5 or above? It's 5 or above. So in that case, it tells the 4 to give it a shove. So we're going to shove that 4 up to a what? The 4 is going to become the next number up is a 5. And then this circled number becomes a 0, 50. Are you catching on? Let's try another one together. 92. Here we go. We're going to underline the tens place. We're going to spotlight the ones. And that 2 is going to take the center stage and tell the 9 what to do. It's either going to stay a 9 or bump up. So let's figure it out. Is this 4 or less or 5 or above? 2. Is that 4 or less or 5 or above? It's 4 or less, so we're going to let the 9 rest. It's going to stay a 9, and then the 2 becomes a 0. Now, you might be wondering why I have 90 or 100. That's because 92 comes in between 90 and 100. There are no more 10s after 90. So it goes 90, 100, and then it starts over with 110, 120, 130, 140. So when you're counting by 10s, the next 10 after 90 is 100. So that's why that was an option. But we see here that 92 is closer to 90 than to 100. If I said, hey, I've got $92 in my bank account, I'm not going to say, oh, yeah, I have almost $100. No, it's closer to 90. I've got almost $90 because that's what it's closer to. Okay, so we rounded down on this one because this is 4 or less. We let the 9 rest. All right, what if we have a 3-digit number? 3-digit number, same idea, same exact idea. We're just going to still underline the tens. Let me show you what that looks like. We've got our 5 underlined. We're going to still spotlight the ones. The 4 is going to tell the 5 what to do. Is this 4 or less, or 5 or above? The 4 is 4 or less, so that's going to tell the 5. She's going to tell the 5, hey, I'm 4 or less, so I'm going to tell you to rest. And that means that the 5 is going to stay a 5, and the 4 is going to become a 0, and the 1 just drops straight down. Here it comes in between 150 or 110. So most of the time your hundreds place, everything after the tens is just going to drop straight down, okay? That's going to be your rule for like 95% of the time, okay? The 1 is just going to drop straight down. We're going to talk about certain times when that wouldn't be true though, okay? So let's try this one together. We're underlining the 7. We're spotlighting the 5. Is the 5 telling the 7 to bump up or to stay a 7? Is it going to round to 270 or 280? Well, 5, is that 4 or less, or 5 or above? This is 5 or above, so we're going to give the 7 a shove. The 7 is going to shove up to the next number, which is 8. The 5 becomes a 0, and the 2 drops down, 280. Okay? Ooh, this is the special case. This is when it would bump up to the next number. Let me show you why. Here, we have a 9 underlined. We have our 7 spotlighted, okay? And the 7 is telling the 9 to bump up. So if it's 5 or above, we're going to give it a shove. 7 is 5 or above, so we're giving the 9 a shove. The problem is that when we shove up a 9, the next number is a 10. And I can't put a 10 in a single place, can I? No, because it's not a single digit. It's not a single digit. It's got 2 digits, a 1 and a 0. So I cannot bump up that 9 to a 10. I just can't, okay? So then what happens is I have to decide if it's going to bump up to the next 100. Well, the next 100 after 900 is 1,000. That's because when you're counting by tens, guys, let's say we're counting by tens. We've got 980, 990. After that, the next 10 is 1,000. So this number is actually going to round up to 1,000. This is one of those special cases where the hundreds place is going to change when you're rounding to the tens. Most of the time, your hundreds, your thousands place is going to stay the same. But here it bumped up because this is a 9 being bumped up. The only time that your hundreds is going to change when rounding to the tens is if this is a 9 bumping up, okay? So let's practice a 4-digit rounding number. Woo! This is actually not hard at all because you're just going to be dropping the 2 and the 3 down because they're not being affected here. This 1 in the tens place is not a 9, so we don't have to worry about the hundreds or thousands changing, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to underline the tens, which is the 1. We're going to spotlight the 5. We're going to draw an arrow from the 5 to the 1 because the 5 is bossy and tells the 1 what to do. So the 5 is that 4 or less or 5 or above. It's 5 or above, so it tells the 1 to give it a shove up to a 2. So the 1's going to become a 2. The 5 is going to become a 0. And we're going to drop the 2 and the 3 straight down. Notice how these numbers all have a 0 in them. They have 1 0 in them. That's because the number 10 has 1 0 in it, okay? Let's try, I think we've got 2 more together. Round this number to the nearest tenth. I love numbers that are all the same. I think they're so cool to look at. So we're going to decide here what 4,444 would round to the closest tens, okay? Our choices down here are 40 and 50. Notice how the 4 in the thousands and hundreds didn't change. It's just going to drop straight down. We're going to underline the 4 in the tens place. We're going to spotlight the ones. And that 4 in the ones place tells the 4 in the tens place what to do. So this circled number, is it 4 or less or 5 or above? It's 4 or less, so we're going to let the underlined 4 rest. So it's going to stay a 4, and this is going to become a 0 to round this to 40, okay? And then this 4 and this 4 just drop straight down. Most of the time, they're just going to drop straight down. Anything that's beyond the tens place is just usually not going to even be affected when we're rounding to the tens because it's not going to usually affect it at all. Unless this is a 9 bumping up, then we don't have to worry about it, okay? So like 95% of the time, it's just going to drop the hundreds and the thousands. But in case you do see it where it bumps up, like where this is a 9 and it bumps up, I just wanted you to know what to do, okay? Let's try this last one together. After this, you're going to go watch another short video, and it's actually me rounding it on paper, and I think that's really going to help you understand fully how to do it, okay? So first, we're going to underline the tens place, which is a 7. We're going to spotlight the 6, and then the 6 is going to tell the 7 what to do. Is this 4 or less or 5 or above? Think about that. Where does 6 fall? Is it less than 4 or is it above 5? 6 is above 5. 5 or above, so we're going to give the 7 a shove up to what comes after 7, 8. The 6 is going to become a 0, 8,880. So I hope this video helped explain how to round to the tens. Go watch my next video about actually rounding to the tens on a piece of paper, what you're going to do at your home on notebook paper and pencil. I want you to really try to follow along with that, practice with it. And I do want you to show your work, okay? You absolutely need to show your work when rounding, because if you don't, your brain's going to get all confused. So you need to write the number down on paper. You need to underline your digit that you're rounding to. You need to spotlight the BFF. And then you need to draw your arrow from the BFF telling the tens place what to do. Understand? Great. If you do those steps, you're going to be an awesome rounder. If you need any help at all, feel free to contact me and I'd be more than happy to help. Thanks for watching, guys.